What is up, YouTube? Hello, welcome into another YouTube live show. I am John Kurtz. Thank you to everybody for supporting the channel. We're going to have some fun tonight because you know who we're talking about tonight. We are talking about the good old Texas Longhorns who, got a little clowned in their own house. Not just, of course, with what happened on the floor, losing a basketball game to Texas Tech. Certainly there is no shame in that. The Red Raiders are great. Mark Adams is great, potentially the National Coach of the Year. There's no shame in just losing a basketball game at home to Texas, or to Tech, rather. But considering all the circumstances that surround said loss at home to Texas Tech for the Texas Longhorns this weekend, there is a lot to talk about because Texas Tech fans, you guys crushed it. You guys crushed it. And I've now gotten to the bottom of the exact story of how exactly you did this, how this fan takeover at United Supermarkets Arena South. Is it South? Austin South, right? Are you calling it United Supermarkets Arena South? Whatever direction it is that you want to go with. That's exactly how Texas Tech did it, by basically figuring out how to get season tickets from Texas. It is a fascinating story. I got it all explained to me. We'll get to the details on that. We'll celebrate with you guys, Tech fans, because frankly, the whole league is celebrating. And I can just tell by how my tweets take off, my anti-Texas tweets take off, that it is not just Texas Tech fans that were loving that. It was the entire league. So guns up indeed. I see it in the chat from Cowboy D5. I see it from Nathan. I see Cowboy D5, Ron, shorts all year, Browns and beers. Appreciate all you guys hanging out. Guns up from Brad. I think we're going to have a lot of Tech fans in here tonight. That would be my guess. And let's all revel in it, man, because I just love it. I just love it. And some of the reaction that's come from Austin after it is just chef's kiss perfect. So Texas Tech fans took over that arena, the drum. It was like half filled with Tech fans who were way louder than the Texas fans that were actually there. They beat Chris Beard for a second time this year and continue to just march right on toward being the 2 seed in Kansas City, just a couple of blocks away. I'm about a couple of blocks away from T-Mobile Center, formerly Sprint Center, here in Kansas City, and I can't wait to see Texas Tech fans here for that, hopefully. I should start floating that out there. If anyone's coming for the Big 12 tournament, like I said, I live about 2 or 3 blocks away from the good old T-Mobile Center, so I will probably be hanging out there some, but that is something to look forward to. All right, the other stuff that I have coming up for you today, unfortunately, not quite as positive news here. The college football playoff is not expanding until at least 2025. They will finish out this contract through 2025. That is now an official announcement that was made. So, it seemed like that was killed because of ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips. I don't think anybody was really very optimistic that something was going to actually get done in the meantime, but it is not. So we now basically know that. And it's a bummer. It's a bummer. We've kind of talked through all of the parameters of this before because, again, it looked like it was headed that way. If you're the Big 12, you don't – look, the 14 playoff scenario just is not going to be a good one for you. We've seen that play out for anybody not named Oklahoma. And, God forbid, if Texas could ever field a football team that would be somewhat worthy of the college football playoff, I'm sure they would be fine too. But, of course, that is a very, very deeply difficult thing for all the money in the world to do down there on the 40 acres right now. But for everybody else, the 14 playoff, it's just not a good thing, man. So having that extended and knowing that it's not going to get expanded anytime soon, that's not a great thing for the league. It's not. But, hey, I did see the theory floated out there. Maybe this makes it more likely that Texas and Oklahoma decide to stick around throughout the entirety of the grant of rights, right? And they'll go ahead and play it out like everyone's been saying officially. Well, we're going to have a couple of years of 14 teams. Perhaps this makes it more likely because if the playoff is not expanding, is there as much of a point to getting to the SEC quicker? We can certainly debate the merits of that as well. I picked up some comments. Bob Bowlsby went on with the folks at BYU TV. Of course, Bob Bowlsby, Big 12 commissioner, and he spoke on conference games, number of conference games that he wants to play for football in the Big 12. Very strong take on that, which I wholeheartedly agree with. And then I just picked up a little bit of nuance in kind of the wording of how he was talking about divisions that to me is a positive, and maybe I'm reading too much into it. We'll find out. But I took at least a little bit of a positive here because I am someone that now really is pretty strongly an advocate of just go to like 3 teams that you're playing every single year in this new look Big 12. Don't bust it up into divisions. I don't think that's going to be a good thing. That seems like a thing of the past, and everybody is trying to move forward. And the Big 12 is a trendsetter there, so do not screw it up by moving backwards on that. A couple other little things. Look, Bob Huggins is like out here publicly advocating for Barstool Sports Arena. He's like begging Dave Portnoy to come sponsor West Virginia's arena and dump a bunch of money into West Virginia. And Kirk Herbstreit said that the Iron Skillet game between SMU and TCU should be a college game day game next year. How about that? I mean, obviously there's storylines abound there with Sonny Dykes, but is it national college game day storyline-esque? I'm not sure about that. So that's what I have lined up. Obviously, you guys in the chat, you can dictate some of what we're talking about tonight. That is the case as always. Fill up the chat, make it lively, make it fun. I will tell all of you, if you want to donate to the channel and make sure that your question or comment supersedes everything else and gets up to the top with my attention, you can donate by clicking the $ below the chat box where it says say something. That will, once again, not only support what it is that I'm doing here on the channel, bringing you Big 12 content constantly throughout the week, but also it will get your question or comment up to the top to my attention, so it will get read. $5 is that cutoff mark. Anything under $5, it doesn't pin to the top for me. So $5 or more donation, that's how you get your question or comment read there. And if you are somebody that's watching this not live and you missed out on this, you can donate by going to my Venmo page, which is John-Kurtz-4. John-Kurtz-4 on the Venmo page. If you want to do something that'll help you out that's free, it takes no money out of your pocket. If you can go ahead and just click the like button right now in this video, that definitely helps. It helps with the algorithm. It helps increase the views. It helps the channel. So if you all could do that, that would be awesome. Snappy AJ, what's the 4 for? I honestly have no idea. I think I got Venmo a long time ago and I didn't really even know what it was at the time. And I just kind of like really quick signed up. So I'm guessing John Kurtz was just taken and it just told me, hey, why don't you just make it -4? There's no significance to 4. None at all. Usually if I use a number on something like that, it would be 7 for Michael Bishop back in the day, but I've got no real significance for number 4. Maybe Terrence Newman, TU at K-State, and go that route. All right. I'm sure you guys are fired up, right? To talk a little bit of Texas failure. And Texas failure was abound this weekend. Ron asked about the leg. Leg is healing well. Yes, 7 stitches in my leg. It's doing all right. We're good. We're back working out fully at the gym. Everything is full go. So I'm ready for that. Calico. Appreciate the donation, Calico. Calico getting us started off. I don't see a question or comment. If you have one, make sure and add it there. So Texas Tech. Good stuff, man. Let's just start with this before we actually analyze any of what happened here. It is a definitive statement, right, that there has never been a Big 12 basketball team that has had a more satisfying 2 games in the span of a month than what Texas Tech has had, with Chris Beard coming back into Lubbock and putting together just an incredible crowd with those crazy, like almost post-apocalyptic scenes before the game when the bus was just pulling in, but then, things were calm enough to the point where nothing crazy happened. Tech was loud as hell. It sounded great on TV. Everybody really paid attention and basically spanked Texas in that first game. And now the second game, the plan, the heist, whatever it is that you want to call the takeover, it all happened. Texas Tech invaded the Drum in Austin. They had that place loud, rocking. There were airball chants. They were clear as day coming through the broadcast from Texas Tech fans in Texas's home arena, and you win the game. Mini meltdown toward the end there by Tech trying to give it away, but make no mistake, that was a game that Texas Tech controlled and controlled pretty handily. I put it on Twitter, just a bleep kicking. And, that may be a little bit overstated for the second time, but I framed it as this year there have been 2 of those delivered. Tech twice has now beaten Chris Beard's you-know-what. And I will kind of stand by that because I think with the stakes that were attached to the game, with the feverish energy that was there, at least from one side of it in Texas Tech fans, because we know they actually care about sports, unlike perhaps most of the Texas fan base. With all of that in the context of the 2 games, I would say that it's fair to characterize it as that Texas Tech did to Texas here in these 2 games. I just can't, it's like the stuff of legends, the stuff of dreams to get these type of cracks at the big boys that you hate. Like, not only the big boys in college athletics have a chance to humble them, but having it be like the Death Star, something that you hate. And then the added circumstance of your coach just left. You got dumped for supposedly the prettier girl, but let me tell you what, the prettier girl has a lot of problems, or prettier guy, however you want to front. Like, the attractive person here, the one that's perceived to be more attractive on the outside by the outside world, has a number of internal problems. And Texas Tech, frankly, has fewer right now. It's just a better basketball program, but you got left high and dry for Texas. You get to go beat your guy twice. You embarrass him in his own arena. You embarrass him in your arena. And then in between there, you get to see, and I made this point last time, I don't think this should go like underreported for Texas Tech fans, but the Chris Beard incident where he goes to an Oklahoma fan who called him a traitor and barks at him after the game, that tells you just how far wedged into Chris Beard's head you are living. He obviously is not going to do that in either one of the scenarios where Tech is involved, because there's too many Tech fans there. I mean, it's like hostile enemy territory. You just have to tuck your tail between your legs and go. But when you get your one shot when you're in Norman, Oklahoma, and no one else really cares that much, and there's not Tech fans around, you can go pop off there and get your frustrations out. You're in Beard's head. You're in Beard's head. And the combination of having it be Texas, having it be one of the big boys in college athletics, whether or not that's a school that's your rival, having it be your coach just leaving there and going there, like also the fact that Mark Adams stayed, like the whole, I know he didn't get on the plane, like that whole storyline too, where it's like you have, not only are you beating them, but the guy that stayed was with Beard and remained loyal to you. I mean, it's just like, yeah, I don't mean to exaggerate too much, but like, it's just like Hollywood storyline-esque. Like, these are the kinds of storylines that you would paint in the way that you would want to set it up in like a movie or something. If you were going to set the stage for something that's very dramatic and very entertaining for everybody, it's exactly how this played out, exactly what happened for Texas Tech. So you throw in the fact that I think most of you know by now, look, this is a Big 12-centric channel, but I'm a fan of a school, and I covered a school in Kansas State that was a part of the 8 teams that were really left behind for a while in college athletics, and I think share a lot of similarities. Not blue bloods, right? Texas Tech, tremendous basketball program right now, but I think you guys know what I'm saying. Like, none of the 8 are really blue bloods in like any sport. So there's a certain camaraderie, I think, that comes with that, when, like a fight the power mentality, and we all sort of relate. So like, to me, it is extra special and cool that the whole storyline revolves around a fan base like Texas Tech that has gotten its moment in the sun at the hands of Judas, at the hands of the traitor, and at the hands of, the program with the most resources of anybody basically in the country, that just cannot control itself from being Charlie Brown and whiffing on the football every single time they run up to it. So I can't get enough of this storyline. I mean, much like the Oklahoma thing, like I can't get enough of this storyline of Texas Tech and Texas and how things have gone down in basketball. So, from that standpoint, I think that is what sticks out to me the most, and like what you should emphasize the most about all this is that, man, look at what is going on for these Tech fans and how you can absolutely savor this, man. These moments are not something that are going to come around very often for anybody. That's not even like a, hey, Texas Tech, you're not going to get moments like this. That's a like, hey, anybody, you're not going to get moments like this. And I also love the fact that it just really shines some light on what I think is a very good and passionate fan base. I think the same can be said for basically all 8 that I'm talking about here that have all been left behind. They're generally good fan bases with a lot of people who really care and will really show up and support a good product. And Texas Tech, a place that, because of the location of Lubbock, again, I don't think it's anything about the actual town. I don't think people know enough about the actual town, because the location of it, viewed as kind of just an outpost in West Texas, just gets unfairly crapped on, on a national level a lot of times. And in a month, Tech fans have really made a name for themselves. The TV broadcast, like the ESPN broadcasters, Fran Fraschilla saying like, hey, this feels like Kansas City and Sprint Center, one of those games. I mean, the fact that that's happening in Austin, just amazing. Just absolutely amazing. And I do have to say, I know some Tech fans, a few, not many. I think most of you got the gist of what I was trying to do with the tweet that I sent out, where I said, look, Tech fans stole the code to get the tickets, filled up the arena, forced Texas to kick out their own students, and then beat Chris Beard's bleep for a second time this year. Some Tech fans took a little bit of offense to me saying, hey, stole the code to get those tickets. And I understand if we want to get down to semantics, stealing is probably a little bit harsh, but that's like to me, the story is better if it's stealing the code, right? So some of it is being performative and yes, exaggerating a little bit by saying stole the code for the tickets. But I think that makes it sound more awesome that you did that. So I don't know, if I were a Tech fan, instead of getting at me in the mentions, I would probably just be like, hey, that's awesome. Let's get this some run and let's, put this out there. Look at what Tech fans did. But basically what happened is I had it explained to me. So Texas, back in like October, starts offering $99 season tickets, which LOL at that in the first place. The Texas is out there offering $99 season tickets for their basketball program. But $99 season tickets. So some Tech donors got behind that, bought up some tickets, knowing that like, hey, if we can pay $100 and buy a season ticket here, I mean, that's, if you're going to play Chris Beard in Austin the first year after he just left you high and dry, $100 is well worth the price of one ticket there. So just go do it. So people start buying that up. Well, then when they have extra tickets later on in the year, they send out an email with a promo code for season ticket holders only. Like those are supposed to be available to season ticket holders only. They send out a promo code that is, it's like Texas 21, I think is what it was. So, not very clever at all, but Texas 21 is the promo code. And so all those Tech fans that had bought the season tickets, well, now they have the code. Now they can spread it on the message boards to all their Tech fan friends and everybody can buy up those tickets. So that's what happened. Well, Texas tries to fix the problem at the last minute. All those seats are like in the upper deck of the arena, which is also their overflow student seating. So Chris Del Conte gets this idea like, hey, let me just rally the troops, tell all the students to show up, and we'll just flood that top section with as many students as we can to, one, just get as many people in the building as possible, try to drown out the Texas fans or the Tech fans as much as possible with students who are generally going to be louder, right? To me, I would guess that there's another part of it that's like maybe just an intimidation. You start sending some of them in Tech fan seats. Maybe some people will turn away, give up. I don't know. It seemed just like a desperate attempt to like create some chaos and confusion to hopefully block some of the Tech brigade that was coming in there. But instead, what happened is a bunch of students showed up. And look, if you're Texas basketball, you're having a heck of a time right now getting students and people in that arena and people that care and people that will be loud. And now you had to turn students away. They had to send students away I was reading all these Twitter mentions of just like encounters that people were having there. And it just seems so awkward and somewhat confrontational and just not a pleasant experience for students that you're having a hard time getting to basketball games anyway. So it's like Tech just did so much damage to the Texas basketball program, showing up, embarrassing them in there, being loud, and then like you have to send away these students that you pleaded with to come to the game. It just seemed like such a short-sighted strategy from Del Conte and Texas in general to go with that. I don't really understand the thinking behind that. I think that's not thinking very long-term. I think it was a move born out of desperation, and it obviously kind of backfired and didn't work. And just so much of it, it's just so Texas. Like all of this is such a Texas thing. And look, Texas fans, you can get mad at me. You can hate on me. I'm not sure how many are even like actually around here at this point. But like these are the kinds of things that you need to do a little bit of inventory on yourself with. Like this is what happens to you. There is like an arrogance well, first of all, you have to offer the $99 season ticket, which is where you're at because despite all the money and resources that you spend, you go out and get the hottest coach every single time. You cannot sustain the success that you should be having in basketball. So you can't get people in the arena. You can't get people to care. So you're having to do this cut rate, super discount, blowout sale ticket in the first place. Then there's like this arrogance and aloofness in just not realizing how that could be taken by Tech fans, like how somebody in the Texas ticket office didn't say like, well, what if Texas Tech fans just like scoop these up for that game? Apparently nobody thought of that. So it's like an arrogance. There's a level of just being ignorant and aloof here. And then guess what? The Tech fans show up and you lose the game. So then there's the underachieving element of this here too, which is a key part of any Texas story. And it just, all of it, it just screamed Texas. It screamed Texas, the way that went down and how everything happened. And you get what you deserve, man. I mean, you get what you deserve. Texas has all of these resources. They've always squandered them, and that continues. And, look, is Chris Beard doing a bad job in general this year? I mean, no. Like Texas is a top 25-ish basketball team, but they're not as good as Tech, and they are continuing to have some of the same problems and getting people to fill out the arena and show up. And look, even though you have a decent team, like that kind of experience, that can stick with people for a while. When you've already got a fickle crowd and you've already got Austin and all the distractions and things that you can go do in Austin. Like, look, I'll be honest, man. If I'm a Texas student, would I rather go? I remember one of the last times I was in Austin for K-State football when I was there doing pregame radio for K-State. We were hanging out the night before a game, and I saw these. I'll never forget it. I saw these kids walk in at like 3:00 on a Friday afternoon, and you know how you shotgun a beer, right? You stab it, and then you pull the tab, and then well, they had Red Bull cans like that where they would gash the Red Bull and then pour some vodka in there. So they were shotgunning vodka Red Bulls at this picturesque bar on 6th Street with a tremendous view. If I'm a Texas student, would I rather go shotgun Red Bull vodkas and live in this amazing city and go hang out on 6th Street where all kinds of craziness is happening? Or would I rather go watch a basketball game in the 50s, even if Texas is a borderline top 25 team? You see the point here, right? Like, I would rather do that. I would much rather do that. And that's what you're fighting already. And so now you create this kind of like traumatic, awkward, embarrassing situation that just happened in your home arena this past weekend. And I think that will have some longstanding damage to trying to get fan support generated for the Texas basketball program. And that has very clearly been a real emphasis for them going back to, they played that game in the smaller gym. Beard was like out marching with students earlier this year. Like Beard realizes what kind of an issue that is. He knows what he had at Tech. He knows what he left at Tech and knows what it really should look like and knows that that's not what he has at Texas right now. So to me, it was a disaster on all levels for Texas. It was as big of a W, as big of a win as you really could get for Texas Tech. And the rest of the Big 12, frankly, is just sitting here like kind of laughing at Texas in the aftermath of this. It's just like, yeah, I mean, that's Texas. That's what they do. And the infuriating part of it is that they will continue to remain relevant in a national sphere, even with so much incompetence, disappointment, underachievement, et cetera, that we see every single year from these guys. But that's why you cherish these moments. If you're Texas Tech, you cherish these moments, getting a chance to go in and do that. So I really hope that you did. And, I kind of love, and this is a bit unfair of me to do. I debated whether or not I should even mention this because I couldn't read the article. It's behind a paywall. I have no desire to pay for the Austin American-Statesman, even though I respect those guys. Like Brian Davis, I think is very talented. He's come on the radio show before, my old radio show. I respect him, but I saw that he wrote a piece. I think it was him that wrote it, but it said Chris Beard came to Texas to win national championships, not beat Texas Tech. I don't know the actual tone and like tenor of that article because I couldn't read it. It was behind a paywall. I'm not going down that road. But like, if that's the idea, I mean, it's just like, can you crawl before you walk, Texas? And that I think is just so indicative of like the attitude and the problem there that will seemingly forever be in Austin, which is just like, okay, Chris Beard was brought in to win national championships. I understand he got close to that at Texas Tech. I understand you have all these resources at Texas, but like, just take inventory of where you're at. And like, the goal should be, I mean, try like winning a Big 12 championship first, maybe. And maybe that's a nice step. Or like, try finishing top 2 or 3 in the Big 12 first. Or try, beating Texas Tech first. Like, just some baby steps here. But instead, no, it's just, hey, they hired this guy to go win a national championship. Who cares if he's losing to Texas Tech? The real true test will be if he wins it. And look, if he wins a national championship in 3 years, this will be forgotten pretty quickly. That would definitely change it. But it just seems so indicative of the attitude there, where there's not much operating in reality, and instead there's operating in this world of money. And I will continue to say, I think the job at Texas, a lot of times you think like, hey, the bigger your city gets, the easier it's going to be to recruit. More kids will want to come live there. If you're recruiting kids from more urban areas, it's a better thing than if you're just a school in a college town. But I think Austin, it's basically doubled in size since the day Mac Brown took over the football program there. I think that is just making it harder and harder to actually win there because the distractions are too many. Like Austin has turned into, the whole keep Austin weird thing. Like it has turned into a real destination spot for especially young people. Like there's too much else going on that you're never going to get the focus that you need. And then obviously all of that permeates top down through the leadership there, through the coaches there, everybody. Country club program, man. It's a country club athletic department. And I think they are going to continue to really struggle to win at the level that they want to, no matter how competent of coaches you bring in there. I mean, Chris Beard, look, I think Mark Adams is great. I think he obviously had a lot to do with Chris Beard's success, but I still think Chris Beard's a pretty darn good coach. But can he ever really, truly get it done at Texas? I don't know, man, because there's just so much distraction there. They're not lacking for talent this year. Look at that roster of transfers they brought in this year. It's obscene, the amount of talent that they brought in through the transfer portal this year, and yet Texas Tech's still out there waxing them twice. So I digress, man. It's a lot of basketball talk, and I see Calico Willie got a comment in there. I am sorry it took so long to get to this. Calico. It was a little long-winded there. Also, I'm battling distractions. I bought some sound panels to put up, like, that should theoretically make the sound the audio quality a little bit better, less echoey. And then, put them up on the wall and they started falling down. So I'm going to continue to work on that. I may also be changing up the mic that I use. I'm going to make the audio better. I promise you I'll make the audio better for you guys. I've heard enough about that now, and I realize the importance of it. I'm trying. I got some of that, but it's like falling off here in the middle of the broadcast. So I hope it maybe at least sounds like just a tiny bit better right now. And then by next week, hopefully we can have some more things figured out. But Calico Willie, my message was to explain why we hate Texas with their push out of NUCU and MU, destroyed OG Big 8. Yes, I mean, there have been a lot of hurt feelings with Texas for a long time, and that is definitely some of the genesis of that. I mean, since day one, it has not been the cleanest of marriages for everybody else in the league outside of Texas. Texas has really bullied and pushed people around. And, I mean, that's the other thing. You have to expect that reaction. And I think Texas fans by this point generally do expect that reaction from everybody. It's just everybody is playing their roles. I mean, I get some of that feedback from Texas fans a lot, like, you guys are just jealous of all this money and power and resources. Like, I mean, in essence, yes, because I think every other school looks at it and says, man, like Texas Tech, look, if you gave those fans and you gave that administration and you gave that basketball program and like Adams, and you combine the money and resources with like the grit and talent and skill and wherewithal and all these other traits that especially like the grit, wherewithal, toughness, like you combine those traits with the money and resources that Texas has, and you would have just a monster. You'd have a freaking monster. And so I think everybody looks at it as like, dude, I mean, if that could be us, we would do so much more with this. So yeah, it's going to be frustrating and it's going to create a lot of animosity. And so the rest of the league does generally hate you. And then especially when Texas leaves. And so much of this, I'm telling you too, another thing I didn't even mention with like how cathartic those two games have to be for Texas Tech fans and a lot of us like living vicariously through Texas Tech with this. What's so cathartic about that is it also comes right on the heels of all the context of Texas and Oklahoma leaving for the SEC. So this idea of you're getting left behind by a school that thinks it is better than you and it is better than everybody else in this loser conference, and now you're going out there and just embarrassing them yet again. Another in a long list and line of embarrassments for Texas. I mean, since Texas announced that they were leaving for the SEC, they went 5-7 and missed a bowl game in football. They lost to Kansas at home in football. And twice they got clownsuited by the school that they stole supposedly their great coach from. The guy that's stuck behind that nobody ever gave much of a second thought to is now beating you twice, and Tech fans pulled off a scheme to embarrass you in your own house. I mean, it's not exactly been a banner year for Texas, showcasing that they are ready for the SEC. I mean, sure, I guess they can be ready for SEC basketball the way that this goes, but you get the point, right? And so there's that animosity that's also created by it as well, and that is just a mix of this whole potion right now. I mean, let's be honest, man. I mean, the league in general, the league as a whole, it's settled down because of the additions that are coming in. It's settled down to a point, but that doesn't erase like all the feelings that are there. Like there were some wounds that were ripped open wide, just like my shin was last week when it was gushing blood and you could see the bone in my shin, and I had to get it all stitched up. Well, it's stitched up, and I've got a heck of a scar there right now. That scar's not going away anytime soon, man. Like those feelings are still there for everybody from what happened this past summer. And that goes for how people have perceived and seen the Oklahoma thing happening with Lincoln Riley, where there's a lot of satisfaction being taken in Oklahoma fans squirming because Lincoln left. That, go back to the scars. Like, that scarring is there. People didn't really like, the rest of the 8 didn't really love Oklahoma and Texas before, but that's been amplified. Like, the stakes are higher. There's more tension. Like, everything is just, everyone's on edge more. And that's going to continue to carry over. And I think you just see that brewing in the reaction between fan bases right now on Twitter, whatever it is, comments in my YouTube section, etc. Like, whoever it is, not that those are the only 2 places that like Big 12 fans ever talk, but I think you can understand what I'm getting at there. Like, it's a very interesting environment in the league right now. There's just a lot of tension and a lot of everybody wanting to dunk on everybody, and just more so than even our society in 2021 typically is because of what is happening right now. So anyway, I'll remind you once again, if you want to be like Calico and donate and support the channel, you can do so by clicking the $sign. And Jay Rodriguez, I see Jay Rodriguez slipping in there. Jay Rodriguez, thank you for the donation as well. You can donate by clicking the $sign below the chat box where it says say something. It will also get your question or comment up to the top. Get to my attention, and will guarantee that it makes it, as opposed to everything else in the chat, which is tough for me to keep up with throughout. And if you are just watching this video, not live, but watching it later on, if you want to support the channel and you missed the live donations, it's John-Kurtz, Kurtz-4 on Venmo. You can make a donation that way as well. Let's check out the chat here. You guys enjoy all of that, Tech fans that are in here? I hope Tech fans were raising hell in the comment section there with all that. I know in basketball has not really been what I try to do. It seems like football drives a lot of the conversation here. I am generally more interested in football than basketball, but this is like even though this was basketball, like this Tech story kind of like overlaps into just what we're really all talking about here on this channel right now, and why there's interest in this channel and why there's so much passion for the people that are here that like follow the channel, is because of the subtext of everything that's happened within the league. And I think this Tech story is perfectly in line and kind of in lockstep with all that. All right, the college football playoff is not expanding through 2025. We now know that for sure. Yes, thank you, Ron, for reminding me. Hit that like button as well if you're in here right now. I would really appreciate that. Hit that like button. That always helps me out as well. We're not getting college football playoff expansion through 2025. Made more official now than it even was when Jim Phillips of the ACC basically killed it by saying, hey, we're not doing it right now. I mean, all I can do at this point is just throw up my hands and say, like, okay, I mean, have fun with this. Like, the only person, I don't think anybody should really be celebrating it necessarily. I think the only person that really is just unfazed by it, unbothered by it, is Sankey, Greg Sankey of the SEC. He can just shrug his shoulders and be like, okay, you idiots, like, you guys had a chance. I was going to throw you a bone here for the sake of the sport and, at the same time, for the sake of making us a little bit of extra money too. But if we're talking about the difference between money and interest and how we can extend our reach, widen the gap basically between us and the rest of the college football world, like, this was a way to not do that if the playoff expanded, but instead you guys are just going to let us do that. So thank you. So we now know that in the last week, the Big Ten is flirting with a $1 billion TV contract, which would be over twice what they're already making right now. And then the SEC is the biggest winner, with the Big Ten slightly behind it, in the fact that the playoff is not going to expand until at least 2025 or that 2026 season. It's not good, man. I mean, it is what it is, but we're just barreling toward more and more the Big Two and everybody else. And it just helps out the Big Two. And I can't understand that. Speaking of short-sighted decisions, I think the ACC has really played itself with this. And they're the ones that seem to be the most vocally against expanding by the end of it. So they are the ones that are going to get the most ire from me right now. Although in the Pac-12, it felt to me like the Pac-12 is just kind of flailing around like, look, whatever we need to do, alliance, the napkin from Chili's, like whatever it is that we need to do, just let's do it. Let's get it over with. Let's get it done and make it happen. And they're just kind of going with whoever will take them from the alliance. I know that the Rose Bowl has been a part of it too, and the Big Ten had its own issues, and players say all those things did factor in. But it seemed to me like the ACC really helped drive a wedge into this thing, and it's the one that makes the least sense to me. And I still think There are tons of questions about Clemson's program right now and the validity of the ACC for the next 3 to 5 years in terms of making this playoff. I think it's a bad decision for them. I hate it all the way around. I hate it all the way around. And I have now seen, this idea like, okay, is Oklahoma now less in a hurry to jump to the SEC because for now, 14 playoff. If you're going to the SEC and it's only a 14 playoff, well, now tougher to get in there. If it's an expanded playoff and you're going to the SEC, shoot, man, you might be able to go like 8-4 and still hit one of those 12 playoff spots. That's only a slight exaggeration. You might be able to go 9-3 in the SEC and still grab a playoff spot. You certainly could go 10-2 in the SEC and grab a playoff spot if there are 12 up for grabs. That's not going to happen now if it's a 14 playoff. So if you're Oklahoma, are you more incentivized to stick around in the Big 12 or not? Look, Texas would have a say here too. But again, until they prove that they're going to be anything other than a 7-5 program with a bunch of hollow promises and a couple little witty quips from your quarterback at the Sugar Bowl, I'm not going to entertain that idea. But I certainly can understand. I don't think Oklahoma would be basing any real decision-making off of this in all likelihood, but I would think that it's something that would not be an accelerator to them getting to the SEC. Whereas if the playoff were going to expand next year, the year after, that could be something I could see would like accelerate the process for Oklahoma there to just be like, all right, let's go ahead and get this thing done. Let's make it happen. Now, you've just avoided there being something else to throw a little bit of gas on that fire. I think it's an interesting theory, and I think it's something that probably is talked about on some level, but this decision is not about going to the SEC for Oklahoma and Texas is not a decision that's based on 2025 and 2026 and, like 2023 through 2026. It's based on the next 10, the next 20 years. So I think if they're smart about it, which I'm sure they are, I think the world of Joe Castiglione, like as an athletic director in terms of his competency there, I'm sure that is something that they're thinking about much longer term than just the short term. Let's be reactionary to this. Calico, appreciate another donation. See Calico in there. Calico says, I know it's a pipe dream, but I'm still hoping OU pulls a good. I hope OU pulls a good, and once Texas goes to the SEC, they say bye, Felicia. Does that mean you hope that? I'm not sure I'm understanding this, Calico. I'm sorry. OU pulls a good, and once Texas actually goes to the SEC, they say bye, Felicia. Is that like you let Texas go to the SEC and then you stick back in the Big 12? I'm not 100% sure what the move is here. If it's screwing Texas, I would enjoy it. I would certainly laugh at it, but look, it's going to happen. I mean, they're going to be gone at some point here, but now it is funny. It's like all these talks for so long about, yeah, okay, Calico, I got you, Calico. You hope Oklahoma sticks around, Texas leaves, and then unfortunately, I think like there have to be a lot of lawyering to have that actually happen without some sort of like legal ramifications occurring because of that. And look, they're going to go. I mean, Oklahoma's going to go, and it's monetarily like such a shrewd move. I mean, that above all else, like it's a move that you pretty much have to make. But look, whatever would get Texas left in the wind, I'm all for. I'm all about it. But as long as we have been saying here that, like, hey, we have to, that everybody, Bob Bowlsby, all these people have been saying, like, well, we're going to have a couple of years of 14 teams. We're going to have a couple of years of 14 teams. It's funny. It felt like everything was moving so fast. And it was such a foregone conclusion. Texas and Oklahoma were going to get out. They're going to get out. Well, I mean, a lot of time has passed now. And now the circumstances on playoff expansion have changed. And I don't know, like it feels like we maybe – I saw BYU fans in there, and I'm going to get to the BYU TV interview in just a minute. I see BYU fans in there, and it's like, you guys may be hosting Oklahoma and Texas. Like that a game between Oklahoma and BYU and a game between Texas and BYU may well happen in Provo. And I know that Texas fans don't want that to happen. I don't need to remind you of the last time you went up against BYU. It does seem like we are legitimately potentially headed there. Daniel, I appreciate the donation. Shout out to Daniel. And Calico, who's been sticking around with the donations here throughout the chat. Daniel says, New Big 12 has more in common with the SEC than the Big 10, especially if they expand to 16. Yes, I agree with that, and that is why, there's been some talk of, like, for a while there it was like it's the Big 12 going to link up with, like, their own sort of mini alliance with the SEC in terms of scheduling. It definitely makes sense from, like, a cultural standpoint. I think there's more of a fit there. again, the alliance schools and all those conferences, it's, I've taken some blowback for this, but I don't think it's really crazy to say, like, it's, the stereotype is they're stuffy academics. And there are, like, it was Tony, right? Tony Altimore, who showed us way back when, like, all the different connections that were there between professors and how the universities share those. And there are just things that are in place there at those schools that are much different than the Big 12 and the SEC that seem to be more singular minded on the athletic portion of this in realignment. So yes, I do definitely agree with that. I definitely do agree with that. Bob Bowlsby did come out staunchly in favor of 9 conference games in an interview that he gave to BYU TV here within the last week. And I was happy to see that. I didn't think there was any way there'd be any real issue with that being the case. I mean, I think if you're the Big 12, you're just in a position where it has to be that. It has to be 9 games because as I'm talking about a potential scheduling alliance with the SEC, I mean, one does not actually exist right now. And there is not, if the alliance is, now the alliance seems to be fracturing, but if the alliance were going to be a thing and they were going to play non-conference games against each other, like the landscape is just more difficult to find quality non-conference games all of a sudden. And I think now the perception has changed enough that it's not as socially acceptable in the college football world to roll out like the schedules that K-State used to roll out in the early to mid 90s, mid to late 90s, where it's directional school, and then you play your conference games. You need more meat to it. You need more beef to it. And if you're the Big 12, you would rather go play a game against UCF than you would against insert FCS school here, or like have to go find like a North Dakota State, some school. I guess that's an FCS school, but they're probably not fair to go insert FCS school. That is the FCS school, but you'd have to go find, some school like that, somebody from the MAC, like a trickier opponent that is not going to net you much when it comes to name value and recognition and winning there. You'd rather just play an extra conference game, right? So you're pretty much locked into 9 conference games the way everything is played out here. The part that I found a little bit more interesting was Bob Bowlsby. I took this. Now, this is one quote. I didn't actually hear it. I saw it in print. Hearing it can be a different thing. Tone can matter. Like, it could really change the way that you actually view this. But Bob Bowlsby on divisions, I thought softened just a bit when the talk back in the fall was all, we're going to look at divisions. We're going to figure that out. We're talking about divisions right now. His quote was, I wouldn't be surprised if we played divisions in football. And then went on to say, I'm guessing we may or may not play divisions in basketball for different reasons, but those things are still taking shape. And I honestly don't have any preconceived notions, blah, 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 blah. Okay. To me, hearing I wouldn't be surprised if we played with divisions is more like, that felt to me like a half step back, like a half step off of like, hey, that is for sure. We are, not that they ever said for sure they're going to divisions, but it was like, for sure, we are going to talk about this. We are going to discuss this. This is something that we need to do if we're going to be back up, because that's just what you do. If you're a conference and you get to 12 to 14, you play in divisions. That's how we've always been doing it. And we've gone into some of the history here in past videos on this channel of all of that. But you just don't need to. What you need to do is ensure that you have a great conference championship game every year, which would mean just have number 1 play number 2. Don't get yourself caught in a tough situation where you're like the Big Ten, where you have one division that's weaker and just rolls into Indianapolis to get blown out every single year in the conference championship game. You don't need that. That's not good for your league. And it certainly is not good when you're a league that has to fight and scrap for every ounce of respect it can possibly get. Baylor and Oklahoma State set the standard this year for what your championship game can be in terms of competitiveness, national relevance, and a television audience with 8 million people watching it. You need to recreate that as much as you can. I think divisions makes it harder to do that. And you could still accomplish the same sort of thing that divisions would do by keeping 3 opponents that you play every single year, almost a pod, preserving some rivalry games, preserving some travel partners, quote unquote, and you can accomplish most of that without actually splitting into divisions. So to me, that was fairly positive to see Bowlsby say that. At least if it is, that's me trying to be perceptive and read into something in an interview that I did not conduct, which is a very dangerous activity to do. But at least I like that. I'm like, hey, maybe they are at least like, all right, perhaps we rushed a little bit in thinking that this was like the thing that we had to do. We'll see. We'll see what happens. One more reminder here. I'm probably just going to do another couple minutes if you want to donate to get in and support the channel, or just make sure that your question or comment gets in. If I have not covered a topic that you want me to cover, click the $ below the chat box where it says say something, and you can do that. We'll supersede everything else in the chat and donate to what it is that I'm doing for you here on the channel, providing Big 12 content. But the last two things are just minor here that I'll throw in while I wait to see if anybody has any last-minute topics that they want to throw out. Bob Huggins hosted a fish fry that was a big fundraiser before the Kansas-West Virginia game this weekend. And Bill Self showed up to it, which, hey, kudos to him. And I don't really have anything against Bill Self, like as a dude and a coach. Like I respect the guy as a coach. I don't like him because he beats my team and runs the conference all the time, but I don't really have a burning hatred for Self necessarily. I thought that was a cool move that he went and did that. But so did Dave Portnoy from Barstool Sports. And full disclosure, I'm not a Barstool fan. I don't really like some of the vibes coming out of Barstool, but I respect the reach that they have, certainly. And I know Portnoy's got a lot of money. And then Bob Huggins was throwing out there a tweet publicly saying hey, how great would it sound? I'm paraphrasing the tweet here, but he said, how great would it sound if it's Barstool Sports Coliseum, a great day for West Virginia basketball? And I was like, man, I guess it doesn't really surprise me that Huggins would saddle himself up to an outlet, an entity like Barstool Sports. He seems Barstool-y kind of guy a little bit. But also just to publicly be that brash about hey man, Portnoy, give us some money, give us some cash here. I was a little taken aback by the whole thing. And I continue to wonder if Huggins is done at the end of this year, because the team is not as good. And it just seems like we're getting to that point, right? We're getting to that point where maybe the message isn't resonating as much. He's an older school coach in a very much new school college athletics world and environment. I don't know. Maybe Bob Huggins turns into a fundraiser after this, and he's going to work major deals with Barstool. If I'm a West Virginia fan, I'd be torn because, again, I don't really like the general vibe and tone that Barstool sets. But they do have a lot of money and wild popularity. If you did get in bed with them, you're going to gain a lot of bandwagon fans that are just the stoolies or whatever. So I was intrigued by that. How serious is this? How serious is this overture that Huggins is making? Is it something that is more of a joke? Is it a, hey, I'm going to float this as a joke and see how you react to it kind of thing? I don't know. We'll keep an eye on that and see if West Virginia is going to get themselves a Barstool arena anytime soon. Eric, appreciate the donation, Eric. Eric says, what do you think is the chance that the Big 12 could make a similar as the ACC made with the SEC to continue some of their rivalries? Eric, I'm a little confused by that. Are you saying could make a similar as the ACC made with the SEC? Okay, so you're talking about ACC, Georgia Tech, Florida State, those kind of rivalries. South Carolina, Clemson, I'm guessing is what you're getting at there. I think so much of that is just dictated by geography. I'd have to think through that, where you could go with more regional rivalries like that with the SEC. I don't, it's just tougher. It's harder to. Yeah, it takes time to build those things. And if you don't have the natural in-state rivals, it is difficult. But I think you could ever come up with some kind of scheduling. Again, I hate to use this word, alliance. If you could come up with some kind of scheduling deal with them, that would be great. I would totally take that. And I know the SEC is tough, and that means it might be a tougher non-conference game that you're playing every single year. But again, the league needs it. People will watch SEC games. That would be great for your TV package, your potential TV deal, and the money that would come from that. If you had that, it would be wonderful. The Big 12 should absolutely 110% do it. Absolutely, if the opportunity comes across. I think to me, it's just a question of whether or not that opportunity would actually present itself in full. Because, once again, the SEC just has all the leverage here. They don't really have to go create some scheduling alliance with somebody. People are going to want to play them. People will want to play the SEC whenever, because they're strong, good teams, and they generate a lot of interest. So it would take some convincing, I think, on the part of Bowlsby. Mark, really kind donation, Mark. Thank you so much for that. Mark, you're a boss. Mark says, is a national college football playoff a given in 4 years with the SEC rating other conferences, teams, rosters, NIL? It'll be even tougher to get the conferences together. Well, you're hitting on definitely a bigger picture point that could come to reality here. And I think I still, even though things have slowed down a little bit for right now, if you ask me, like, what is it going to look, John, when you hit the age of 45 here in about 13 years, like, what is the game of college football going to look like? Will there still be conferences? Will it be one super conference? Are we headed for a Champions League kind of thing? Still feels like we're inching that way. It feels like we're moving that way unless something dramatically changes. And I hate that much. I definitely hate for the sport. And it feels like, for now, like the Big 12, like our schools, we've kind of survived. And hopefully, for a little while, things will settle down and be cool. Kind of like in 2010, you got through that and it was like, okay, let's chill. And then you got about a decade before all hell started breaking loose once again. I hope that is ultimately not where it goes, Mark, but I fear that is where we are really drifting in the college athletics and college football world. And we're going to finish off with Alpha Cat here. Much appreciate the donation, Alpha Cat. Alpha Cat says, thanks for another Sunday. Great comment to close on. And I think we'll just leave it at that. It was a great chat. Thank you for hanging out, everybody that was in here. Thank you to everybody that donated to the channel. Again, if you are not watching this live and you want to donate, it's John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you want to support the channel. Also, follow me on Twitter at JLKurtz. That's how you stay up to what I'm doing, what I'm thinking about Big 12 sports on a day-to-day basis. I'm on there way too often. A great place to follow me. And if you have anything for me, slide the DMs at JLKurtz. Try to be pretty responsive there as well. All right. Take care, guys. We'll be back at it. I guess I should tell you next week may be a little bit tricky. It might be a little bit hairy. I have a TV broadcast that I'm doing on Thursday and Friday. So I'm actually taking off of work from the regular day job, and I will be going out to do that. I'll give you some more details on that next week as we get closer to it, but it's probably going to cramp my style a little bit with the YouTube channel. Sunday, I think I should still be able to do because I'll be back, but like Thursday through Saturday, I'm going to be out of town for this TV broadcast on ESPN+. So to be determined whether or not we actually get a midweek show in or not. But if you guys follow the updates on the channel where I can just create like a post on there, I'll try to create a post for you guys to let you know what's up if you want to just follow it. But just be aware, next week is going to be a hectic week for me coming up this week. I am excited for it, but also looking forward to getting to the backside where I can kind of chill a little bit. So anyway, with that, take care. Have a good night. Have a good week. And I'll talk to you guys soon.